So speaking of winning, I'd like to introduce you to two really important members of the Fair Michigan team. These are really amazing women who I just actually interviewed today and was with today on that case that Dana alluded to earlier on the transgender woman who was robbed and shot. And so Jaimie secured a plea deal today on the one defendant. The other one is going to go to trial. She refused a plea deal for him. And Julisa commented for us as the outreach and advocate for the transgender community. So please welcome these wonderful women as they give you a project update on winning.
It is often said that justice is blind, and it is an ideal that justice is dispensed without regard for wealth, power, ethnicity, race, religion, and yes, sexual orientation and gender identity. Now, you heard a lot about our successes, but the reality is that for many LGBT victims, the kind of justice that they receive is dependent upon the first responders, the prosecutors, and the judges, and how culturally competent they are. You've heard a lot about our successes tonight, and we have had a lot of successes, but you haven't heard how we've struggled to get those successes, because we are still fighting for equality in the area of law enforcement. Now, we have had many cases that have gone very well. You're going to meet some officers that work really hard, and when things come together, when we work together, we get really good results. But often we still have times where we're prosecuting cases where we have victims that feel that they can't come forward. They feel that they can't tell their families what happened. They're not going to tell the police. They can't tell their friends or their families. They're not going to talk to social workers or teachers when they don't even feel accepted by their family. We had a victim earlier this year who was thrown out of his house because he was victimized. He was the victim of a gun assault. And he was actually told that he could not stay in the house anymore, and that was his own fault for being gay, and that's why he was assaulted. We've had victims who have reported to the police and were ignored. We did an armed robbery case a couple weeks ago where the police showed up. We had a couple who was held at knife point in their apartment. They were robbed. The police were called, and the police wouldn't even come into the home to look at the area that was ransacked and where they were held at knife point. When we received the complaint, we realized that there was evidence left at the scene. There was video downstairs that was not taken. And these victims thought, how can we come forward? How can we go into court? How can we testify? How can we follow through when no one took us seriously? But we did. We have an investigator on staff, Vicki Ost, and she went out and she did all the work that wasn't done in this case, and we were able to secure a conviction for these victims. When we work with our transgender community, these women have a really hard time coming forward to report what's happened to them. And then they are re-victimized when they have to come into a court system where they have to be worried about how they're going to testify and whether or not their gender identity is going to be respected. It is sad that I have to spend hours preparing a victim to testify about being shot in the face or raped, and that they're going to have to endure a cross-examination where inevitably the defense attorney is going to try to use improper pronouns. And whether or not that defense attorney gets away with it depends on the argument that we make and depends on the judge that we're appearing in front of. Because there's no policy for judges for them to respect gender identity, but the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office does. We wrote a transgender interaction policy this year that was adopted by Kim Worthy. It's been recommended on the Pan Prosecutors Association of Michigan website. We did a webinar about that this year. So we have a policy in place, and it is the first of its kind in the country. So I can tell our victims, when you come forward, I will advocate for you. Your gender identity will be respected. And if somebody in this courtroom tries to disrespect you, I'm going to fight. And I'm going to object. And we've actually had that scenario happen twice, and I am pleased to say that both times the judges backed us up and cited our transgender interaction policy. But we still have a long way to go but we are working to bridge the gap between law enforcement and the community. And with your support, we can continue to do that. So thank you so much tonight for coming.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Julisa. I am the Director of Transgender Outreach and Advocacy for Flint, Michigan. If anybody leaves with a glitter mark on them from hugging me, I apologize. So in 2016, I reached out to Dana Nessel, and it was because of the disparities that trans women, the LGBT community, and specifically trans women of color face in the area that I live in, that I work in, that I've been a part of, which is 6 Mile and Woodward. I wanted to be a part and help. The fact that I had education, spoke 3 languages, and walking through bubblegum meant absolutely nothing, fortunately because I was transgender. After advocating for so long, thank you Dana, she gave me an opportunity and a platform to not only request a seat at the table, but be a table and be requested at panels in different places. One of the things that I love about working with this organization is yes, we help prosecute crimes, but we also need to realize what trans women of color go through, specifically our LGBT community, in order to even be a part of the crime, the homelessness, the adversities, and the violence that we face. So many of them, unfortunately, are displaced at a really young age. They don't have the benefit or the opportunity to be their authentic self, to have resources, the daily necessities just to live. So on top of advocating for them through the court system, I myself, as the outreach for LGBT community and transgender advocacy, help them with resources from anything to hormones, emergency housing, food stamps, basically anything that is going to help them be a little more adherent and take care of the issues so that they can have a more productive life. Like Jaimie cited, we did the trans inclusion policy here. I've also went to different government agencies and police departments and offered cultural competency on trans population. Though Jaimie said we have came leaps and bounds, obviously we are still working. In the beginning, it was really hard for trans women in my community specifically to come forward and talk to police officers and just law enforcement entities about what it is that they were experiencing, just because they weren't going to get treated fairly. We've made great strides and worked with Danny Wood, so thank you for all the work that you do for the community. In the last year, I've seen the amazing work that we've done with the LGBT Advisory Board, but other organizations now that partner with us, that work with us. This job, sometimes being a victim advocate and helping your community, is very selfless, very tiring, and there's a lot of hours. It's not just a 9 to 5. Our phone rings all the time, and there's times that I've called Jaimie at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock. You can't put a time on violence or crimes. And I am so grateful and so appreciative that every single time that I've called, her, Vicki, Dana, and everybody on the Fair Michigan team has answered, and we do what it is that we need to do. So again, just because it's so selfless, I want to take a minute to say thank you to, again, to Danny Woods, to Victor Harrell from Community Health Awareness Group that I work really close with, Liliana at Affirmations, Wrigley's, Nabil, the whole team back there. So again, I just want to thank everybody for being here, for being supportive, for giving me a voice, for allowing me to make a stand, to be there for my community. Let's continue to not only be allies in spaces like this, but always be supportive and stand up for what's wrong so that I can continue to be great and help my community. So again, thank you guys for coming and God bless.